Hola, ¿qué tal? Aquí Julio Monroy desde Delta Records en Bogotá, Colombia. Hoy tenemos un gran invitado muy especial porque nos va a hablar sobre el audio para videojuegos, así que quienes estén interesados compartan esto porque va a estar espectacular. Este live stream va a estar en inglés, pero vamos a tener subtítulos en español. Así que vamos. Hi Ben, how are you?
Oh, I'm very well, Julio. I'm wonderful to be here with you. This is very, very special for me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for accepting the invitation. It's a huge honor to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, likewise, likewise, I mean it.
Thank you. And we are with David Sicard. Hey, David, how are you?
Hi everyone, welcome to this new episode of Producing with Julio Monroy. Ben, it's a huge honor to have you here. It's a really exciting topic, and I'm really excited about this episode. So thank you a lot for being here. For the people connecting, remember that you can actually send us questions through the platform on which you are watching, and I will communicate the questions to both Julio and Ben. I leave you with the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Well, Ben, we have only two mandatory questions here in the live stream, and it's pretty easy. So the first
So I
is
was hoping for 300.
we have like 1,000 for you, but two mandatory questions. So the first is, can you tell us how did you begin in this music, audio, video game industry?
Okay, it's really it happened at multiple stages throughout my development. I, like many of you and my peers in this field, have been a musician all my life, a musician first. And if I look inward and think about who am I as a person to this very day, at my core, musician is the word that comes to mind. So music has been important to me since I was old enough to sit up straight on the piano bench when I was just a toddler. And I've been playing piano and keyboards ever since. And not to frighten anybody off, but I'm 54 years old today, so I have to apologize to everybody for that. But it's been a long life in music. I've spent many years as a performing musician, as a studio musician, as an arranger, as a producer, as an audio recording engineer, mixing engineer, mastering engineer. I have owned 3 recording studios of my own, commercial recording studios, and I have worked either on staff or freelance at just about every major historic recording studio in my part of the state of Michigan in the United States. By the way, did you know that the very first privately owned recording studio ever is still in operation in Detroit, Michigan? Are you familiar with United Sound Systems?
No, tell me more about it, please.
Yeah, United Sound Systems. It's been a while. I did some sessions there in the 1980s. And it is a historic place. As I said, that's the very first privately owned, meaning that it was not owned by a record company. Okay, it was independently owned business. And it's a wonderful recording studio with multiple control rooms. It's in sort of like an old, very interesting house, mysterious house. I like houses like that where, it's almost like a labyrinth. You never know what corner you're going to turn and what secret rooms you're going to find. And I remember the first time I went there, I was wandering around the whole building, and, I was amazed because no matter where you went, there were like U-87s and things like just laying around all over the place. But it's a very vibey studio, and boy, did I learn a lot there. And my heritage, when I was trained in audio engineering, my main mentor was a man by the name of Robert Dennis Sr. And Robert Dennis Sr. was one of the original Motown audio engineers. And he was really old school. And it was through my apprenticeship, basically, which lasted for many years with Robert Dennis Sr., that I learned the old ways of doing things. things. I was very good at splicing tape. I spent at least half of my career using analog equipment and analog tape recorders. I've probably calibrated the electronics of analog tape machines many, many, many thousands of times, if not tens of thousands of times. And that includes the very, very first machines like the old Ampex MM1000, machines of that era, and the most modern machines like Studers and Otaris, and they ran the gamut. So I was very, very fortunate to have that type of mentorship and learn the old ways. You know, sometimes I'll be teaching an audio engineering class or a production class, and I will demonstrate an edit, but a digital edit. And a student might say, "How did you do that so fast? How did you know that that was going to work?" And I like to tell the story about when I was being trained in editing, there were no digital audio workstations. And the way that it worked is we were seated at like a Scully 2-track. And the instructor, in this case, it was my mentor, Robert Dennis Sr. from Motown, would walk up behind me and he would turn to face away. And he was wearing headphones. And he'd left me with the tape and instructions for what the edits needed to be. And I did my best. And the criteria for passing was if he could audibly detect an edit, you fail and you must begin again until you can edit on tape flawlessly. So what happens is you start to develop an instinct for it, and you learn about what will make a good edit work and what might prevent an edit from working well. Even things like you have to listen not just to the opportunities like on the bar line that you want to make an edit, but even things like a reverb tail getting a discontinuity can ruin an edit. Or if you're resuming in a location in the song where the tempo or dynamics are a little bit different, even if the edit is technically nothing, it couldn't have been done better, but there are attributes to the music that are the reason that the edit cannot work. And you start to develop, like I said, an instinct for that sort of thing, especially when you know that when you cut the tape, it has to be right. Because if you cut it wrong, you have wrecked it. So, you know, I'm glad that I had that opportunity and had to learn how to edit, among other things. You know, that's not the only thing I can think of, but among other things, you know, I'm a very fast digital editor because I had to learn how to edit with razor blades and splicing tape in the dark.
In the dark. Yeah, but so I was thinking that you have a long background in traditional audio. Yeah, you
Yeah.
said that you can edit with tape and everything. So, what motivated you to shift towards game audio?
Well, it's a great question. Thank you for asking. I have spent a great portion of my career dedicating my life to being an audio educator. And I come from a family of teachers, so I think it's in my blood a little bit.
Okay.
And you may be surprised to know that I have been teaching audio engineering professionally and at 3 higher learning institutions since starting in 1990.
Wow.
And in 1993, I was hired to write music and develop some sound effects for a video game. And I did, and everything worked out fine. But in those days, it was much, much different than it is today. Some people who are maybe around my age might remember that computer games back in the early 90s, when you bought a video game, it came in a box. And inside that box was usually one or more CDs that had the data CDs that had the installers and the other content. And most of it, when you bought the video game, on the box, it may have said, you know, Sound Blaster 16, something, something, something required. As a matter of fact, I have something funny here. I tell people that when they ask to see my ID, I show them these. Okay, these are the because I still have them, and what we needed in those times was that there was the general MIDI standard that had to be adhered to, because the synthesizer chips on Sound Blasters and Turtle Beach sound cards and things, those were GM, General MIDI 1 compliant. And if you recall, General MIDI is a very standardized sound bank. So if I had MIDI files in my game meant to be played on a synthesizer chip on a sound card, well, if there was no standard bank of sounds, the notes might be right, but your bass line might play on a flute and your guitar might play on a drum set, because there was no agreeing in terms of which program numbers would equal which patches. So the general MIDI standard codified all that. And you may recall, I don't know if any of you have ever encountered later in life in electronic music production, how so many engineers and producers are in the habit of always using MIDI channel 10 for drums,
Yeah,
even when
yeah.
they don't have, even when they don't have to. And if anybody's ever wondered why, that comes from the original GM, General MIDI standard, where the only way that you could access the drums was on MIDI channel 10. And therefore, what I had to have at home were Sound Blaster and General MIDI emulator sound modules. So one of them was the Roland MT32, and one of them was the Sound Canvas. And these were not even rack mountable. They were like tabletop sound modules that could accept MIDI, and their sound banks were 100% general MIDI compliant. So if you were to create a game soundtrack using one of those as your multi-timbral sound module, that you would at least know that when you turn over the final product, when you deliver the final product to the game development team, that when they implement it, at least on the sound card, it would be the correct instruments.
Well, I didn't know why the channel 10 was used for drums. So now I know it.
You know, there's no reason it must nowadays, unless you have to do something that is that must be GM compliant, which is very restrictive. I mean, that's not really anything that I can see a modern use case for, unless it had something to do really with utilizing a very, very original soundtrack from an old video game and re-implementing it identically in maybe a sequel or something like that. There are some nostalgic video games. I have a good friend, speaking of old-fashioned video game music, that this was before MIDI was invented. The Commodore 64s had some single voice synthesizer chips in them called SID players. And my friend, a close friend of mine by the name of Craig Chamberlain, who's a very, very brilliant computer programmer and developer, she created the SID player software for Commodore 64, and he hot rodded his Commodore 64s to have two of the SID chips in them so that he could do, two-part, like a Bach two-part invention, things like that, where there were only two voices in counterpoint. And I think that had a lot to do with how at least in the United States, one of the very early Commodore computer commercials was set to the Bach two-part invention number 13. And I think that there was a shout out to my friend Craig in that advertisement.
Well,
And he also wrote the documentation for it. So if he's kind of historic, and this was way before MIDI ever existed. So that's very impressive.
yeah, that's very impressive. And I was thinking about audio and video games. Yeah. I like a lot video games, and I was wondering, how do you program audio and music into video games? How is that? What?
Yeah, first of all, it is something that I love dearly. I will say that it is artistic, but also technical. And when I say technical, I don't want to intimidate anybody, because this is a technical in a way that's incredibly satisfying. If I may, I'd like to compare it to an experience that I had early in the 90s. I had only been teaching a few years at that point, and most of what I was teaching was studio production and recording techniques and things along those lines. And at a certain point, I decided that I wanted to start teaching audio post-production for film and television. So I had to learn about that. I did a couple of internships. I read some books. I got up to speed on it. And we had the equipment at the school where I was working. And I remember I started practicing so that I would feel confident before I started teaching that. And have you ever heard the term, I bet you have a term for this if it's not the same, called spotting a sound effect? Spotting in To spot a sound effect, it's like spot mode in Pro Tools. Okay,
Okay, yeah,
that's
spot.
that's where that's probably where that came from, because back in the old days when we had to do linear post-production, we would typically be given a 3/4 inch, what they used to call a U-matic video cassette, 3/4 inch U-matic, like a regular video cassette but larger.
Hmm.
And it had the picture on it. It might have had one track of audio on it, and the other, because they were stereo, the other audio track oftentimes had LTC, longitudinal or linear time code, the normal audio signal version of SMPTE time code. And if it didn't have that, it might have been recorded with VITC, which is vertical interval time code, which is also SMPTE time code, but it is embedded within the video signal. So that I could synchronize my synchronization peripherals to it. It was back in those days made by DigiDesign, the Universal Slave Driver, I think it was called. Way before we had the Sync IO and the Sync HD, we had the USD, the Universal Slave Driver. I don't know if that will ring a bell to anyone, but that was back in the 90s. And it could resolve to black burst. So that's what I had to do. I had a black burst generator, which is the same as Genlock. And I had the black burst resolving the video deck to control its running speed. I had the black burst resolving the universal slave driver. And then for positional sync, I would use either the LTC that was on one of the audio tracks of the videotape, or the VITC, the vertical interval time code embedded in the video signal itself. And it's important to get positional sync, but also speed agreement. Running speed has to be very precisely controlled with resolving signals such as black burst, so that you don't introduce any speed drift unintentionally due to variations of motor speeds in things like different video decks, for example. So I remember I had the system all synced up, and this was my very first time trying it for real. And it was for an interesting car commercial. No, excuse me, it was not a car commercial. I beg your pardon, it was a movie trailer. And at one point in the film, there's a close-up of a pistol, and somebody shoots the pistol, and there's a muzzle flash. Of course, this was all done in visual effects, and it was not a real gun, and there was no real bullet. Even the muzzle flash was fake. But I went into my digital audio workstation at the time, which was a very, very early. In fact, I don't even think it was Pro Tools. Maybe it was, excuse me, I made the sound effect in Sound Tools, believe it or not. And
Sound
then I,
tools.
yeah,
Wow.
and then Sound Designer too, yeah. And I then imported it into Pro Tools, and it was basically just like a bullet, the
Uh-huh.
sound of a bullet being fired.
Yeah.
And I would crawl the picture using the jog shuttle wheel on the Sony U-matic video deck. You'd press
Okay.
pause, and then you could crawl frame by frame. And there was a window dub, right? A window dub is that burned in time code, hours, minutes, seconds, frames in the
Yeah.
image. So you could crawl the picture, and you could wait until you see the one frame where you could see the muzzle flash. And I could then read the SMPTE address for that. I knew exactly what hour, minute, second, and frame that had to happen. So I have at the time it was a SD2 file, because we weren't using WAV files back then. They were all Sound Designer 2 files. I had my SD2 file in Pro Tools, and I knew what SMPTE frame it had to correspond to in the picture. So I highlighted it, and then I went into spot mode, which still exists in Pro Tools, and people don't tend to often think of using it in this way, but that's what I think its original purpose was, to spot sound effects to SMPTE frames. So I was in the timecode display format, and what you do is you go into spot mode, and then you click on what they used to call region. They now call them clips. same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can specify what SEMTI frame you want that to be moved to.
Right.
Even better, you could have metadata within the file called a sync point. So even if
Yeah.
you didn't want you could spot the leading edge of the region or the trailing edge of the region or a sync point somewhere inside of the region to correspond to any SEMTI frame that you wanted so that it would be very precisely timed to the picture. So I spotted this bullet sound effect. And then it sounds ridiculous, but we had to do this. I had to rewind the tape after doing that several seconds, because when you press play, it takes a little while for everything to sync up. It wasn't instantaneous. So, rewind 30 seconds and press play, and I'm sitting there waiting. And then the gun comes out, and I see the visual, and I hear the sound effect that I made and spotted, and every hair on my body stood up and turned to ice. That was one of the most unforgettable experiences I ever had and probably will ever have, because it gave me a type of satisfaction, a unique type of satisfaction that I had never experienced before in any other context. Never. And it sold the illusion. It completed the magic trick. That gun was being fired as far as my brain was concerned. It needed the sound, and it also needed the support of the visuals. Neither one of them did anything on its own, but when they came together perfectly, well, that was just amazing, and I became addicted. So I did a lot of linear post-production for a long time. And then every once in a while, and you can stop me, if at any point I'm just talking too much, please interrupt.
No.
But I remember... at the beginning of my teaching career, students would ask me questions, and sometimes I did know the answers, but other times I didn't know the answers, and it embarrassed me. And every time I felt that, I was like, you know what? This is the last time this is ever going to happen to me. So that if this question is going to be asked of me, it's my responsibility as their educator to be prepared. And so I would take it very seriously. If somebody asked me a question I didn't know, I would go out and find out and educate myself. So over the years, people would still ask me questions that maybe I didn't know the answer to, but I wasn't as hard on myself. First of all, it happened less and less often over time. And I also was still committed to learning whatever it was that I didn't know. But I would always assure the student that I don't know at this moment, but I'm going to find out and I will let you know. And I would make sure that I would follow through on that. But over time, I noticed a trend, which was many students asking me, how do I get into audio or music or both for video games?
Yeah. Yeah. That was my next question.
Yeah, that was the hardest one, because I didn't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
I didn't even know where to begin because I was working under a very, very seasoned developer for that one video game that I did in the 90s. And I did not need to know very much other than to create samples that were to be used as sound effects.
Okay.
In fact, I remember I was delivering those sound effects in .snd format. Okay, they were like sampler files.
Yeah.
A lot of them I was delivering on DAT, and some of them were even being delivered on 2-inch tape, as I recall. I wrote the music, I recorded it, I mixed it, I made all these different practical sound effects and processed them in crazy ways, mostly using analog equipment. And he did all the implementation. He did it all. He just told me what he needed sonically. So I was not an implementer. I was just a regular old recording engineer and thought this would be fun to do. Luckily, he thought that I did a good job and he paid me for my work, and he went on to do whatever he did with that game, which was an unusual game. It's an interesting story I can tell you at maybe if we have time later or some other time. A different kind of game.
Tell me,
And then
please.
And then many years would go by. Students would still ask me about how do I get involved with games, and this was like a thorn in my side, not because I didn't want the question. I desperately want those kinds of questions, but it hurt me deeply that I didn't know the answer. And I found that getting the answer was a lot trickier than I thought. Okay. And I
Yeah.
still see to this day so many audio students and so many audio professionals who are extremely accomplished, extremely talented, extremely technical and knowledgeable, and sometimes in many ways that even surpass my own knowledge. And you say to them, do you know how to do video game audio? And they just no clue whatsoever. But in my observation, I don't want to exaggerate about how plentiful the job postings are, although I do think that they're more plentiful than most people realize. Um, it's not the case that you're just going to go to an audio school, graduate, and qualify for the best jobs in the gaming industry in audio. But I can tell you that every day for the past several years, many, many years, I'm subscribed to two sources of job posting information primarily. One is Google Job Search, where you can type in keywords for the types of jobs you want to get posts for within a certain radius from where you live. And the same with LinkedIn. So between those two sources, I get minimum 20, up to about 50 or 60, average is around 40 job postings every day for audio professionals and or music professionals that are well versed in either game engines or allied types of technology. They're oftentimes called technical composers or technical sound designers. These are some of the terms that are used for these types of positions, and those carry implications, such as you know what you're doing with Unreal Engine, for example, or other types of similar game engines, or all of the NVIDIA Omniverse services, and not to mention the types of use cases that would be demanding of those skills, whether it happens to be games or virtual production, which is huge right now and calls upon similar skill sets and does need audio personnel, or major developers such as Meta and Microsoft and even Apple. I see these every single day. And the jobs that I see that I think that we as audio professionals and as audio educators, we have the ability to learn these things and then to make this type of training available to our students, because I want my students to be able to be viable and competitive in that field. Because typically, yesterday, one of the job openings that came in was for a technical sound designer for the company Meta. And it was a range of salary that started at something like almost $200,000 a year, but the upper range was $395,000 a year. Now, in United States dollars, that is well above a typical salary for
Hmm.
somebody who has gone to school for recording, mixing, mastering, music production, finds a job at a studio and starts working there full time or freelance or whatever. I understand that there are exceptions, people that get to work with celebrities and are in high demand, but I think that the reality, especially when I consider how many students I've had since 1990,
Yeah.
I can't say that the vast majority of them really got to be Chris Lord-Alge, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so uh, most of them are still working. And here at Lawrence Tech, frankly, our program is quite different from the vast majority of audio engineering programs, I think, anywhere, because we are not part of or an extension of any kind of music or performing arts program. The audio engineering program at LTU is very much an engineering program, and I work for the College of Engineering. We don't have a music department at Lawrence Technological
Oh,
University.
wow.
So our audio engineering students, yes, they graduate as audio engineers,
Yeah.
but moreover, they also graduate just as well-rounded engineers, and
Okay.
therefore they can do just about anything. And a lot of them are working in live sound reinforcement or in recording studios or doing various types of creative work. But I would say even more of them are doing research and development for transducer companies or audio DSP systems for automakers or NVH for aircraft, NVH being noise, vibration, and harshness. I don't mean to condescend, but to anybody that
Okay.
may not know, NVH is noise, vibration, and harshness, which is sort of like it's an applied acoustical science with respect to mitigating noise, vibration, and harshness in vehicles, including things like automobiles, airplanes, and even spacecraft. And NVH is an important job, not only because of you want the passengers to have a good cabin experience, but vibration can also lead to catastrophic failures. Structure-borne vibration can lead to mechanical failures. And much of this is what I see as a very specialized branch of acoustical science. So our students learn all about engineering principles in general, not just audio, but electronics and just everything else, all of the typical engineering curriculum that would apply to any undergraduate engineering program. Our students go through that curriculum as well and are very, very capable. So some of them I've got students working for ESPN. I've got students working for Yamaha. I've got students working for Panasonic. We've got lots of students working for Harman International. And if you know about Harman, that's the parent company of AKG and JBL and
Yeah.
lots of other pro audio divisions. And they are doing like transducer development and research and benchmarking and DSP design. I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are very proud, and I was thinking, wow, so the game audio industry pays more than the music industry, right? It seems.
I would say, at least in the United States, no
Yeah.
contest. No contest. Um, it's sad to me how, many of the very best recording studios in the world, I know that you're aware, had to shut down right
Yeah.
around the time that things like ADATs and DA88 started to appear. People figured, why do I need to go to a recording studio anymore? I remember when I was a little kid and recording on my cassette 4-track, knowing how horrible it was, thinking, boy, if only I had a 2-inch tape machine. And then I spent, decades working with 2-inch tape machines and thinking, you know what I find ironic? Oh man, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this. Can I get in trouble for saying something because it's okay with me? If
Yeah.
I get in trouble, it's okay. I'm not going to get anybody else in trouble. I'll get
Yes.
myself in trouble.
Please.
I'll put it to you this way. These days, and for the past 20 years, maybe, we see such desperate effort on the part of, let's say, plug-in designers and signal processing to design things that are supposed to emulate the sound of analog tape, don't we? All right. We see that. The Crane Song plugins and the UAD plugins of the Studer and the Oxide, and we've got the Fatso hardware, all this stuff meant to simulate analog tape. But here's the big secret: is that when analog tape was our only choice and our entire frame of reference, I don't remember knowing any recording engineer that would record something to tape and say, yeah, I love that analog tape sound. In fact, it was just the opposite. We were usually disappointed to the degree, I would say, that if I was doing a production where some of that production involved electronic instruments like synthesizers, what we would typically do is we would stripe track 24 with SMPTE. We would do that anyway because of automation systems or other purposes. But we would also use it to sync up our synchronization peripheral and use that then to synchronize our drum machines and sequencers. And those drum machines and sequencers would, the drum machine would produce live audio, and the sequencers would send MIDI signals out to keyboards and sound modules that would also provide live audio. So what we would do is all the sequenced parts were recorded on tape tracks, yes. But when it was time to mix it, did we use the tracks off the tape? No. We synced up the sequencers and drum machines again, and we used those signals live right out of the instruments. And nobody knew that they weren't coming off of tape, but that was the very cleanest way to get those signals. Back in those days, in the early to mid 90s, that's what we called virtual tracking. That's where that term came from originally. Virtual tracking was that. And I was always in favor of that even prior. When I was a young kid and I had my very first basement studio, I had a Tascam Porta 01. Does that ring a bell to anyone? A Tascam Porta 01? Well, it was the Tascam Porta 01 was one of the first iconic 4-track cassette recorders. And it sounded like you might imagine, but I had a secret. I knew what FSK24 was and Smart FSK. So what I did, and I was an electronic musician, I had drum machines and synthesizers and sound modules, and this was shortly after MIDI came out. So many of the drum machines had tape sync in and tape sync out ports on them, as did a lot of the hardware sequencers, and I just happened to own those things. So I would put a track of FSK on track 4 of my cassette 4-track recorder, and I would simply run that FSK to my I think it must have been like one of my TR-707 or something like that, and then output from there MIDI to the, I had a couple of sequencers, but I'd love to tell you about my first sequencer. My first sequencer was the Roland PL100, and it was beige, and it was about this big, and it sat on my table. Guess how many tracks it had?
How many?
2.
2. I was going to say 2.
Yeah. So the workflow on the Porta 01 is that you'd record on track 1, then you'd record on track 2. And then there's a button that's called merge, and you press the merge button, and then it takes all of the MIDI data from both tracks and merges it onto track 1, thus freeing up track 2 for yet another quote-unquote overdub.
Wow.
There was one level of undo. So if you did another take and you wanted to undo something that happened earlier, well, once the MIDI was merged, there was no way to unmerge it.
Yeah, no way.
I mean, on a modern sequencer, you could, in theory, do it by MIDI channel. You could separate by MIDI channel, but that was not possible on the PL100.
We're talking which year was
I would have to estimate, but the PL100 could have been, I have to guess, maybe 1983, 84, something like that.
Okay.
Because it was very early MIDI, you know?
Early MIDI. When the MIDI was
very early
released,
MIDI.
right? Yeah.
Yep. So I would therefore have this FSK striped on track 4 of my cassette deck, of my cassette 4-track, beg your pardon. I would have a sync up the drum machine with tape sync, the FSK or Pulse 96. Sometimes I had a couple of different systems. One used Pulse 96, one used FSK 24. And then out from there, the MIDI would drive the sequencer. And sometimes I even had more than one sequencer. And those would feed the instruments themselves with MIDI cables. And then all of those came into a pair of mixers that I somehow owned. One of them was an old Neptune PA mixer, and the other one was like a Crate PA mixer, which I managed to cascade together, and I had an okay mixing system there for a minute. And the only things I would therefore have to record on tape were things that had to be recorded on tape, such as a guitar take or a lead vocal or something like that, a bass. But if I could do the bass with MIDI, I would, you know. And I never had to mic up drums, not back then, because I had drum machines, and that's all I aspired to at the time, because I had no other resources. I was really young. I mean, this was before I could drive. You know, so over time, that was a good approach for me. And then eventually I got a Tascam 38, which was my first reel-to-reel. I had a Tascam 38 half-inch 8-track with 8 channels of DBX. And I also had a Fostex E16, and I was able to sync those up together. That was more tracks, but not as good sounding because it was, I think, the same tape width, but 16 instead of 8 tracks.
Yeah.
But I had noise reduction on both tape machines. And for that time period, yeah, I guess I would say it was better than not having it. I mean, I've
Yeah,
worked
of
on,
course.
I've worked on high print tape, like Quantigy 499, high print tape like that, at 30 IPS. You'd say, you know, the trade-off between using something like Dolby A or even Dolby SR, as good as Dolby SR was for noise reduction, my ear can hear the compansion of analog noise reduction. The compander's working, and that always bothered me. So when I was recording on high print tape at normal 30 IPS, I would never use noise reduction, but only if it was 2-inch tape and, high fluxivity tape that was running at 30 IPS. But back in the days of running the Tascam 38 and the E16, I was happy to have the noise reduction.
Yeah,
But
of course.
still, I would use the same technique that I used on my cassette 4-track. I would record time code on the edge tracks of both tape machines and use those to drive sequencers and drum machines and bring those signals into what then was a Ramza mixer. You know, that Ramza mixer that people lust after, that the W something. I can't even think what it's called, but I had one of those. And it was,
You had a
I
lot
can't remember.
of equipment.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I scraped. By the way, I started as a performing professional musician also at a very young age. I was making money, not only performing, but also teaching piano and working at music stores. And I was very, very determined. I owned my first physical location recording studio by the time I was 15 years old.
Wow,
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I had taken it over from a prior owner. His name was Victor Pereno. I'd have to look it up. He was a rock star in the United States, and this came about because there was a music store very close to my home, walking distance. Because in the United States, you cannot drive by yourself until you're 16. And like
Okay.
I said, I was just 15. I had been working at that music store, I think, since I was 14. And there was the owner of the store owned the entire building, which had a lower floor and a upstairs, an upper floor. And up the upstairs floor was a recording studio called Diversion Recording Studio, which was owned by Victor Pereno. Someone in your audience is going to know that name, Victor
Okay.
Pereno. I just can't think of what makes him famous. He was in a rock band, and they got
Okay.
famous for a little while. And Diversion Recording Studio was up there for a long time. And I was aware of it. I mean, I used to shop at that music store even before I was 14. So every once in a while, he would, beckon me and I would get to go look up there. And it was not the best studio, but it had a control room and an observation window and a small live room and 2 sub rooms. And I thought, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Um, when I started working at the music store, by that time I was 15, I already had all that equipment that I was telling you about and more. Um, I had a bunch of samplers. I had lots of synthesizers, a whole big collection of microphones and drum machines because I was obsessed. And this is what I was doing in my basement. So when Victor decided to move out, the owner of the music store, it was called the Music Stand in Berkeley, Michigan, if anybody wants to look it up.
Hmm.
I spoke to my boss, the owner. His name was Roger. I said, well, Victor's lease is up. He's moving to a different location. I guess his business was expanding. Good for him. But our business owner, the owner of the store, wanted to use the space upstairs for storage. So I said, don't do that. Okay. Let me clean it up and let me take over the studio, and I will work during the day in the music store and in the early evenings in the music store if you allow me, and I will take no pay. I took no pay after that. The deal was no more commissions, no more pay, but you let me have that space as my studio. And he agreed. And that was an amazing experience for me in my life. So I operated that studio since from the ages of 15 to age 19. and it was my main source of income. And I couldn't believe it. And by the time I was 19, I had joined forces with another friend of mine.
Oh,
And he had even more equipment than I did, and he and I started a second recording studio together in a nearby city. So I had two. And then when I was 19, that was when I was recruited and hired by my first employer for audio education. I was made a teacher at the Recording Institute of Detroit, which was
yeah.
the only state licensed school for the recording arts in the state of Michigan. And there were no universities that taught audio engineering, none of that. Okay. I even tried to go to Berkeley at that
Yeah.
time. And I remember I got into Berkeley. I applied, I got accepted, but the closest thing that they had to audio engineering at the time, this would have been around 1988, they
Okay.
had a music synthesis, and it just wasn't what I wanted, because by then I had already been not only working in my own studios, but I was freelancing at all the major recording studios in what's called Metro Detroit, the all the suburbs and cities that Detroit really is the central hub of it all,
Yes.
the Detroit area basically. And and I used to meet some of the very best recording engineers around. First of all, like I said, my mentor was legendary, Robert Dennis Sr. I got to know people like John Yash. I got to know people like Ben Gross. I got to know people like Al Hirschman. I got to know people like I'm leaving people out. I don't want to.
Yeah, of course.
Rufus Harris. I mean, they inspired me, and I said to myself, this is what I must do.
That's
And
amazing.
from those days forward, it was just, I have not done anything else other than do sessions, play gigs, be a session musician,
What
write books.
what do you play? Which instruments do you play?
Yeah.
The only thing that I would say I have professional competency with is piano and keyboards.
Yeah.
Right.
That is my true instrument, but I can play most instruments. But
That's amazing.
I don't think of myself as being professional at anything other than piano and keyboard.
And how did you become an Unreal Engine instructor? Tell us more about it.
Yes, sorry I got off track there, but it was born out of being asked so many times, and finally, that attitude that I had of feeling very guilty and really, really bad about not knowing the answer for a student that comes to me for that type of guidance. I feel very, very responsible to point them in the right direction. So I felt like, okay, the only way that I'm ever going to understand this is that I'm going to have to learn it myself, because I didn't have a clue. It was this deep, deep mystery for me. So I remember when Unreal Engine 4.2 came out, and that's the version that I started with, Unreal Engine 4.2. And I checked, and that was 2014. I started learning Unreal Engine at home by myself, nobody to teach me. There were books that I read. There was a little bit of documentation online. I had not been a programmer previously, but I had a great ear. I had a great passion. I was very good with audio engineering. Music was, I mean, to this day, if somebody wants me, I spent many years composing music for commercial purposes. So if somebody wants music from me, I can compose music at will. I don't have to wait for divine inspiration. I'm not trying to brag. It's just what you have to be able to do. If somebody calls me and they say, I need klezmer zydeco punk for a car dealership in Idaho by Thursday, can you do it? My answer had to be, why, yes, not only can I do it, but I specialize in that, so that I would get the gigs. And I got the gigs. I did all kinds of commercial music composition. And being a session musician also, with my favorite, by the way, idolizing the members of Toto and their prowess as session musicians, getting things in the first take. I used to have like that sort of pride. I wanted to be that first take session musician, just like my heroes in Toto. So I got to the point, pressing myself as a musician and a musical thinker and a composer and an improviser, where I could do any sound that I could imagine at will. So I already had those things going for me. And you know what? A lot of audio students, too, have those things going for them. They have talent. They have training. They've got experience in the studio. They know every synthesizer. They know every plugin. They can make any sound. They have every microphone or have access to every microphone. But when you say, okay, you can make any sound, but how are you going to do it in a video game? The truth is, as I see it, and by the way, I do concede that you're gonna find people that don't agree with me on this, but I stand by the statement that I'm going to make here, is that the only way that you're going to be able to qualify for the types of jobs that pay $395,000 a year so that you can make music and sound for a video game, number one, you have to get good. Number one, you have to get good. And the only way that you're going to get good is not because you're going to have a whole bunch of volunteers making video game scenes for you and programming game mechanics for you to design sound for, and then having them implement it for you. It's not going to work that way. You must learn Unreal Engine or something like Unreal Engine and study and practice and find out what is even required of music and sound effects that can be used in a video game. What are the specific use cases? What would be completely disqualifying? You might write the best piece of music ever heard, but it's immaterial if it does not have the right type of agility to be dynamic in the ways that video games require. Unlike a motion picture soundtrack, right? When you write a score for a movie, well, you can play that movie as many times as you want, but it's always going to have the same beginning, the same middle, and the same end. And the music's going to do the same thing every time. In a video game, well, a participant can make any choice they want at any moment. And the music and the sound effects and the audio, all of that is in support of the story and provides essential feedback to the player. Now, if the player...
Yeah, we actually have a community question now that you're talking about that, and it's how the music is programmed to be reactive. For example, you are on a character and you're listening like to soft music and you're going through the mountains, but an enemy appears, and then the music changes and it has actually musical logic into it. Like it transits really smooth and in key and everything. How does this work? That's from Juan Fernando Jimenez.
Thank you for that question very much, and it's an excellent question. I've been asked this question before, and in my opinion, it all starts with what I think of as a very special form of musical agility, okay? And when I say musical agility, what it means to a composer is that you have to have an awareness that your music has to have the capacity to change drastically according to what may be happening in a video game, and knowing that that can happen at any time. So you can probably imagine that in a linear composition, to completely zigzag or to completely go a different direction when it is not expected may be highly non-aesthetic. Right? That could be jarring and frankly disorienting or even upsetting or, just unappealing. But in a video game, if you listen to the very best video game scores, that does not pull you out of the illusion, because the composer was so agile that during the composing of the music, there are off-ramps. At any point in the music, it can transition an off-ramp into a different theme or a different level of intensity, higher or lower, or whatever is needed based on how many circumstances can the player find themselves in. And if it's done correctly, it has to sound as if it was composed to be that way all along. That's what I mean by musical agility. It has to sound like it was composed to be that way all along. So it all starts at the compositional and orchestration and arranging level, right? So have music that will allow for those types of transitions to occur without totally messing up the music itself. And it is possible to do, and it takes practice. It takes agility. That's the word that I use. In a technical sense, most of that sort of thing in something like a game engine is controlled by variables. Okay, so let's say you've got a certain musical theme that's held in a state of playing, or even something as simple as looping. And it doesn't have to be a 2-bar loop. It could be a 24-bar loop, or it could be something super long, but looping. And by the way, in video game music, we also know how to make certain things happen at random, controlled randomness, so that people don't get bored listening to the same music over and over and over again, because even though it's the same score, the instrumentation can change a little bit. We've got special ways of doing that. So it's truly never the same twice. We've got variables in the, I don't want to say code because I don't want to scare anybody. You're not going to be sitting really in front of like a terminal typing out like actual code, most likely as an audio or music person in games. But knowing a little bit about what's called scripting, which is a form of programming. In Unreal Engine, for example, the game engineers do sit down in front of a terminal. They don't necessarily get involved with many of the creative or artistic aspects of the game, but they make sure that the game is optimized and running well, and it's not going to crash and whatnot. But as an audio programmer or as a technical composer, you have to have at least the knowledge of those types of things. Doesn't mean you have to be able to program them sitting at a terminal, but you have to understand how variables work and how different states and variables interact, so that if, let's say, your health drops down below a certain threshold on your health bar, that, okay, the low pass filter starts coming down and everything starts getting dull as your heartbeat starts coming up, and the music is changing into something that's telling you better act fast because you're about to die. And, it takes the agile composer to be able to make that happen on beat and in time smoothly, to the point where it sounds like it was a linear score and nobody would know the difference, not jarring, not out of place. And then to a certain degree, implementation also, because during the time that you're practicing and becoming the best in the world at this, to the point where you're viable and you can compete in this industry, you're going to be the one that has to do the implementation, because the music does not exist in a vacuum. And the game does not exist in a vacuum. The visuals support the audio, and the audio supports the visuals. So if I'm teaching game audio at the university here, I don't just say, sit down at your digital audio workstation and write a piece of music that sounds like it could be in a video game. No, we create a video game that has specific requirements. And then your job is to create the soundtrack that is compatible with those specifications. And you also learn to put it into the context of that game in a technical way, because only then do you know how well it worked. Did you achieve the magic trick? Did you suspend the disbelief? Right? Like the experience that I described when I had my first experience doing linear post with that gunshot. In my brain, 100%, that was a gun that shot a bullet. But it was because the visuals were there and the gunshot sound effect was just right. It was certainly no technical feat of nearly impressive. But if you've ever experienced that sensation of satisfaction from something you did in linear post, imagine that on steroids, and the steroids are on steroids the first time you make that happen in a video game. Right? The first time you have a character that doesn't make any sound at all, and you implement character footsteps. So when they walk around the level, you hear the little footsteps on the character. Something like that is a incomparable experience. It's just, there's nothing like it. There's
Like
nothing like it.
magic. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
We actually have another question, which is, how do you create sounds, for example, for characters that you were asking now, to be believable for the player? Like, how do you know that that sound belongs to that specific object or a specific character, and it can be perceived as believable? Especially when they are non-human characters, like a lot of them.
Yes.
Yep. Well, For example, there is a character in a game project that I have for one of my classes in progress right now. And in that project, there is an elf who is able to move her hands and jump a certain way and cast magic spells. And so the students
We
have to
actually,
learn how to create.
sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you. We actually have the video for that, right? So
Yeah, maybe I can tell them one thing to pay attention for, okay, in
okay,
response to that question, right?
sure.
So it's not just the sound of the magic spells, but it's vocalizations that a person might make as they're moving their body with effort. And we have people standing in front of microphones going, you know, things like that, just so we can use those. And they're randomized too, so that every time the character does that, it's not the same sound that they make. It's sort of like round robin sampling, so you never really hear the same sound twice. That improves the realism. And same for like character footsteps. You never hear the same footstep twice because we make sure of it. And if you step in that puddle and it makes a splash, well, then the next time you step in that puddle, better make a different splash. And a lot of it is physics accurate. But also for characters, it's not just the sound of the magic spells, but the sound of the clothes moving and the physicality of vocalizations that they make. And also spatialization. Because in video games, we mix kind of in 3D audio space so that sounds are spatialized in such a way that the listener, especially if you're wearing headphones or listening on a surround sound monitoring system, or even a consumer surround sound gaming system, that you can tell the localization of where a sound is coming from. So whether it be binaural or ambisonic spatialization or discrete surround sound or even Dolby Atmos over headphones or over loudspeakers, all of those modes are available for game audio. So being able to tell where it's coming from. Also, if a character is talking, it's helpful if they have lip sync and at least some body motion, I beg your pardon, because you're right. Sometimes it can be difficult to know who's saying what if you don't get the right cues. In this video clip, this is from like early in the semester, so they haven't done the lip sync yet. But lip sync would have made you'll notice this too, how big a difference just the presence of lip sync would have made to selling the illusion of the speech. Right? The speech is fine, but it would have been, it would have sounded better if the lip sync was there. I know that sounds like I'm speaking metaphysically, but it's true, right? It's like the McGurk effect. Have you ever seen the McGurk effect where they go ba, 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 and you swear you can hear ba, B-A, until they change the video and it's ga, 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 but they don't change the audio, just the video, but they keep it in perfect sync. Did you know that your brain continues to, your brain will hear ga if that's what the video is. It will hear ba with a B if that's what the video is, even if the sound is the same. That's the McGurk effect. So if you see a character in a video game that's supposed to be speaking, but their lips aren't moving, it doesn't matter how good it sounds.
Wow. I feel like I'm in a class with you. That's amazing.
That's amazing. Okay, so
thank you.
I'm gonna roll the video now for people to see like this demo. Let me pause the music really quick, and well, this is the exercise.
Come on, we have to get there before it's too late. I know this magic. It's from the ancient ones. I think I can open it. You'd better stand back.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
from
it.
Game Audio 1. And here at Lawrence Technological University, I've got two game audio classes, respectively called Game Audio and Sound Design 1 and
Uh-huh.
Game Audio and Sound Design 2. Clever, I know. But that's actually from the very first course.
Wow, the first course.
Yeah,
Wow,
it's Game Audio 1,
I
what you just
like it a
saw.
lot. I like it a
Thank you.
lot. I was thinking about when I play and all the, the there's a lot of work in behind all those video games, and it's amazing.
It is truly amazing. It's a gargantuan amount of work.
Yeah.
It's no joke, but all of the things we love, if you think about it, as we're already technical artists, aren't we?
Yeah.
We work in recording studios. We
Hmm.
use very, very sophisticated technology, and we are here making our music, playing our instruments, and expressing ourselves. My attitude is that you could do all of those things, the same things, write your music, play your instruments, and express your creativity. It's just a different venue. And that venue is, well, right now we could say video games, but I would say that even that is an understatement because I have a certain notion about where I think all of this is heading. And this is just me. I didn't pick this up anywhere, and I don't even know if I'm right. This is just a hunch. But I envision a future, not too long from now, where things like video games and television and feature film are going to become primarily one thing. And it will be something along the lines of the choice of the consumer if you want to watch it as if it were television and not participate in any way, you have that option. You can sit at home and watch it on a flat screen or whatever, and that's that. But you will also have the option to enter that world and not only participate, but shape it in some way. And what the people are watching on TV may indeed have been shaped by what you contributed to that world. And then you can actually exist in that world, vicariously, of course, but as a form of entertainment. I mean, how many have you ever seen like a really great film, but it's so good that you see yourself as being in the story?
Yeah.
You know, if I could walk into Star Wars, if I could walk into the Star Wars film and be part of that world, oh, hell yes, I would do that. I want to be a Jedi too.
Me too.
But it's just as much fun. It's just as much fun watching it on the flat screen. But hey, if I could get in there, and that's part of the appeal of video games. But
Yeah.
video games, you can be anywhere and anyone and anything at any time. And if you were to merge all these forms of entertainment, then a person could participate to whatever degree they choose without diminishing their enjoyment. In fact, probably deeply enhancing it.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about the other video that you sent us. Can you tell us more about that video?
That was another class assignment. That was
Uh-huh.
another class
Oh.
assignment. And there are particular, what we call implementations, particular use cases that require slightly different skills for different types of uh, uh, circumstances in a video game. For example, if you're doing a vehicle engines have to be tied to things like speed or rotational speeds of crankshafts and things like that, or velocity vectors of aircraft or projectiles, or you never know. Um, but you have to kind of think outside the box very often when you are creating sound effects. And there's this video. It's already several years old, but I sent it before we went on the air today to Julio, And it's from another class assignment where they were designing sound for a spaceship in space battling other spaceship. So they designed the weapon sounds and the music and the engine sound for the spaceship. And we should probably, if we're going to play it, well, let's listen to the engine sound. And maybe they can also take some guesses as to how the laser blasts were made.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what people think, because it's probably not what they're going to expect, perhaps. But it was made from things that you know about, but perhaps not in this context.
Yeah, let's play it, please, David.
Okay, I'm gonna play the video now. That's amazing.
Wow.
Somebody actually wrote if you were hitting a pillow on the sound effects, they were listening to like a hitting of a pillow.
Did you notice that at the moments where the enemy ships were being destroyed and blowing up, did you notice that it shook the cabin of the player spacecraft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you notice the same thing when the elf slams her fist on the ground and makes that big magic circle? Same thing happens, right? Because everything supports everything else, right? That sound effect alone might not have been nearly as effective if not accompanied with what's called a camera shake, which is something that occurs that helps provide the correct amount of drama, impact, and weight to those sorts of events. Because after all, your ears are telling you, yeah, it's a big sound, but your eyes are telling you, and your eyes are telling your brain, yes, it actually shook the cabin of the spaceship, you know? And everything together has to tell the story, not one thing in isolation.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about the sounds of this
Oh
video?
yeah,
What did you use, or
did anybody guess what the engine was? Combination of two things, basically, and some signal processing, but not
Uh,
much.
no, they're saying that they were listening to the pillow kick, blankets, like they're listening to fabric. That's what they are
yeah?
listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the engine was primarily a hair dryer that had 3 speeds and a vacuum cleaner. We mic'd it all up, and this was just like stuff that was in the building at the time. We were like, well, what can we use for this? There's a hair dryer in the bathroom. Oh yeah, it was left there by a client for all things. And then we used the shop vac at the studio, and it had 3 settings. So we sampled basically or recorded these devices idling at their different speeds. And, I added something like a flanger or something to make it sound a little bit more, science fiction. Didn't do very much to them at all. And by the way, there you can do the amount of signal processing magic available today is unbelievable. If anybody's really interested, I highly recommend looking into Composer's desktop project. If you really like sound design and the things that you've never heard of, and being able to create like otherworldly sound effects for free, I've never seen anything like it. Look up CDP. It's the Composer's desktop project. Yeah, you can get it on GitHub, and wow, what an amazing tool that is. So for if you're going to do any of this stuff seriously, you're going to need tools beyond the DAW, stuff like that. That is pretty obscure, but once you learn about it, it's invaluable.
Composer desktop project, right?
Yeah, Composer's desktop project.
Yeah, yeah. I was checking here. Well, Ben, I'm very happy with all this conversation. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but David has some advertise to show us, please, David.
Yes, remember that you're gonna be able to find this episode as a podcast on all streaming platforms. It's really easy. You just go to the platform that you prefer and you look for Produciendo con Julio Monroy. You will be able to find this episode and all past episodes. Also, remember that we have a Discord server where you can actually interact with us and talk about audio. We can talk about music, composing, a lot of stuff there. You can share us your work, you can ask for feedback, a lot of things. So be sure to connect with us through our Discord and join this amazing audio community.
Thank you. Thank you, David. And we have an event, right? In the future with Hey Audio Student.
Yeah, it's coming up very soon, going to be September 24th. And you can see the time is 8 p.m. Eastern time here in the Midwest United States. And I think someplace we have it posted also. Oh, you know where it's posted is in the MetaHuman promo that I made.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know if it will stream well, but I can give you the YouTube link for that if you wanna run it.
Oh, thank you.
Sure,
Thank
let
you,
me
Will.
find that.
Well,
Let me see.
Thank you, Ben.
Oh, it's been
Uh,
my pleasure.
yeah, it has been amazing because you know playing video games it's amazing and there's a lot of work and but I have the last question for you. It's the second mandatory question. And well, you know there's a lot of people and new audio generations and what would be the best advice for the people all over the world, not only in the United States, but all over the world that would like to work in this industry? If you were going to give an advice to a 20-year-old young person, what would be?
Listen to what I'm about to tell you. Somebody has to be the best in the world at what they do. It might as well be you. That's what I have to say.
Wow, I love it.
Hey, think of it this way. Let's say you at least try to be the best in the world at what you do. And let's say you fail. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You will be among the best in the world. You cannot lose if you shoot for the moon. Go for it. Go for it. You just may be the best in the world.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. It has been an honor to have you here. Yeah, hear your history, all your thoughts, all. It was amazing. Thank you. I have
Thank
no
you.
words.
Oh, I have no words. I look forward to being your friend for years and years and years to come. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It means the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you all. Thank you all for tuning in. And I hope you get in touch. It would be great to connect with all of you and meet you myself.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, and thank you, David.
I put the
oh yeah, the link.
yeah,
Right.
it's in there if you want to play it. That's the Hey Audio Student event.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
That might freak people out because it's a video game character of myself talking. It's pretty scary.
Let me check if I can play it. Or David, can you play it?
I
It
am
seems it's
I
the
am
same
unable to
link,
share my
uh,
screen at this moment because
but it
I
seems
have
it's the
I'm
same
capturing
link.
the captions.
Ben, it seems it's the same link of the.
Oh, is that the
Yeah,
wrong one? Okay, let me
yeah,
fix
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Hold
yeah.
on a second. If you have the time, I can fix it.
Of course, yeah, yeah, because it's a great promo for Hey Audio Student with our good friend John Krivit.
Yeah, just give me about 15 seconds.
Okay,
I think I copied the link from the wrong video. That must be.
don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. But yeah, it's going to be a great event uh, with Professor Ben Blau and John Krivit talking about an introduction to sound design. So, yeah.
Okay, I just found what should be the correct link, and I'm sending it in the chat right now.
Okay.
That should be the correct link.
Yeah, yeah, I have it. So I'm going to share it. I hope it will work. Hold on, please. And now give me 15 seconds.
Sure.
Well, there's a lot of screens here, but I guess this is the right one. Yeah.
Hey, audio student, it's Ben Blau here, and boy, have we got something truly special lined up for you. On Wednesday, September 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I'll be live on Zoom with an introduction to game audio using Unreal Engine 5. So mark your calendars, September 24th, Zoom, Unreal Engine, and you. It's time for round 2, so let's make something extraordinary together. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you there.
Wow.
Hey, audio student.
That's amazing. That's you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's Unreal Engine technology. Anybody could do it. You could do it.
Wow. I need one. One of these with my face. Well, it's going
Hey,
to be great.
let's do it. I can make one with you.
Wow, that will be great because I like it a lot. It's so
Thank
real.
you.
So real.
Isn't it? It's uncanny. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to connect that day in September 24th to hear you again and all your
Oh, thank
knowledge.
you.
Yeah, yeah. We're going to
Well,
connect with David too.
well, thank you, and thanks to Sick and everybody else in your team and all the listeners. I can't wait to get to know each and every one of you. And thank you for tuning in to spend time with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank
Been
you,
a
Ben.
privilege to be here.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you, David, for all the hard work behind the controls. And yeah, you know.
You're welcome, Ben. Thank you a lot for being here with us. It's a huge honor to have you here. We have a lot of fans of this subject, and it's amazing. Unfortunately we ran out of time, but we actually got some C++ questions and everything. Like they're into this and programming and coding, and well, it's amazing to have you here. Thanks to all the people that connected. Thanks to all the people that asked questions, and well, for being here with us. I leave you now with Julio Monroy.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us. It was amazing. And well, when I arrive to my home later, I'm going to play video games and think about all the hard work that they have. Yeah. So, well, next week we're going to have a live stream with Miguel Dominguez from Genelec and Alberto de la Cruz from BCR. So we're going to talk about the new audio certifications of Dolby Atmos. So see you next week. Bye bye.